God wills it, ladies and gentlemen. Day slow vote. Day slow vote. Day slow vote. God wills it. Yeah. It's the Crusade. God's war to free Jerusalem. Pope Urban looks at his maps. He sees what he sees as a Muslim threat. That Islam might, if not checked, might inevitably take over all of Europe and thus wipe out Christianity. Islam, he feels, is a heresy. They're not led by a man by the name of Muhammad. They're led by the devil, and therefore they must be stopped. The Byzantines to the east have asked for help, and he's going to give it to them. This will probably also increase his own power in Europe as well, so he's got some other underlying motivations. Pope Urban makes a speech in Clermont, France. At that speech, he calls on all Crusader, all Christian knights to join God's war, not to help the Byzantines, but to free Jerusalem. In his speech, he makes exaggerations. He appeals to their hearts and not to their heads. They don't know anything about Muslims and who they are, and he describes them pretty much as inhuman demons. This speech at Clermont, France, rages through Europe like a wildfire. Like a trendy internet meme, it is everywhere. He tells them about the Muslim atrocities, the goal to free Jerusalem, that all your sins will be forgiven if you just go. And many of these knights have extremely sinful backgrounds. And now all of their sins can be gone if they go and free Jerusalem. Day slow vote! Day slow vote! Urban says the old, the poor, the weak should not go. They will march in August. Peasants led by Peter the Hermit ignore him. They go anyway. Many of them die and starve along the way. They slaughter innocent Jews. The few that make it to Muslim lands, they are slaughtered. Thus, crusades are done, right? No, they are not. The peasants were sinful, and God smote them. God punished them for their slaughter of innocent people and the Jews. The Lords will not make that mistake. This, ladies and gentlemen, in notebooks, make sure you have it labeled somewhere, the First Crusade. This is the officially sanctioned crusade of Pope Urban II and the Catholic Church. The Peasants' Crusade, that was a fake crusade. That wasn't the real one. This is the real one that Jesus will actually lead. That's what they believe, and that's what they've been told. Now, many different armies will begin to march to Jerusalem. They will meet together at Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire is like, hey, you guys are here to help us. And they're like, no, we're going to free Jerusalem. We're going to free the homeland, the city of Jesus. And the Byzantines are like, either way, the Crusaders will have multiple armies meeting at Constantinople. They will march together through what is today Turkey, at that time known as Anatolia, the peninsula of Anatolia. One of the weaknesses that the Crusader armies will have is there's no real leader of the army. You have all these lords. Many of them think of themselves as, hey, I don't listen to anybody except myself. But the armies will march towards Jerusalem. When the Muslims hear that there's another army of the West coming and invading their lands, they at first do not take the invasion too seriously. They had an invasion before of the West, and those were peasants. So there are many Muslims and Muslim authorities that are like, okay, they've apparently sent another peasant army. This won't be a problem. So they delay slightly. That will work into the First Crusaders to their advantage. Now, the other thing is when the Muslims do send an army to face the Crusaders, the Muslims have never seen knights, men in full metal, chainmail from head to toe, with metal garbage canned helmets and slits, horses partially armored as well. If you've never seen a knight before, they can be a pretty intimidating figure. The Muslims don't know how to fight these knights. They were expecting peasants. When it's confusing to them, they will fire their arrows at these knights. And the bows, Muslim bows, are generally not strong enough to penetrate Crusader knightly armor. So they'll race up, they'll fire their bows at the knights, the arrows will hit them right in the chest, and they'll just keep on going. The arrows don't bounce off, they stick. And they keep on going. Some of them look like porcupines, and yet they keep moving forward. The Crusaders will struggle in their battles against the Muslims, but the Muslims do not know how to fight the Crusaders. If only they knew how, the Muslims would have much more success. The Crusaders, they believe, aided by God, will win battle after battle, some in seemingly miraculous fashion. I would say they got incredibly lucky, specifically at the Battle of Dorylaeum, and most notably at the Battle of Antioch. The Muslims just do not know how to fight knights. If knights charge at you, the last thing you want to do is stand there and stay in their way. Many times the Muslims just stand in the way. Either way, years and years of marching. They will march for years, and their goal is Jerusalem. And more specifically, their goal is here, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This is the church that Jesus was crucified and resurrected. Now, when Jesus was crucified, there was no church there. There was just a spot, the Golgotha or Calvary, the land of the skulls. It was a quarry area. The Bible is very descriptive about where Jesus was crucified and the cave where he was resurrected in Christian belief. This church was built over those spots. Now, is it the exact, well, here, let me show you. This spot, this picture that you're looking at, this is to be the actual spot that Jesus was crucified on. Now, is it the actual spot? The answer is, yeah, maybe. It might be the actual spot. If it's not that spot, they might be within 5 to 10 feet of the actual spot where the cross was erected and where Jesus was crucified by the Romans, Pontius Pilate, etc., because the Bible, again, is very descriptive about the spot. Now, they also built a church. They built a church over the spot. They built a church over the cave where he was resurrected. This is the ultimate goal of the Crusaders, to free Jerusalem, they will eventually build this church of the Holy Sepulchre, but to free this spot where Jesus was crucified and resurrected. To make that more clear to you, we got a quick video here for you. Here, check this out. It's very short. That's the church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Let's look at how this one building came to be built over both the sites of Jesus' crucifixion,
there you go. There's the place crucified,
and his tomb, where he rose from the dead 3 days later.
And that's the cave today. That's the tomb.
Calvary, or Golgotha, are the Latin and Greek names for the quarry on which Jesus was crucified. Both names mean the place of the skull, because the quarry had been dug out so much that it resembled a skull. At the time of Jesus' crucifixion, Calvary and the tomb where he was later placed were both outside of the city walls. When St. Helena came to the Holy Land in the 4th century, she found the remains of Jesus' cross in a cistern, and Calvary was under a pagan temple.
A cistern is a well.
She tore down the temple and cut away the rock hill covering the tomb to build a church over both. The present church, which was built by the Crusaders in the year 1149, stands over the sites of the cistern, Calvary, and the tomb.
Okay, very, very cool stuff. Well, cool stuff for me. Jerusalem is certainly a place that I want to go to, and I would love to visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Either way, the Crusaders will march for 3 years, and I'm skipping huge portions of the story. There are books written about the many battles that the Crusaders will fight in their attempts to get to Jerusalem, and indeed, they will get to Jerusalem. Let's see if I can get this, so that way we can see it a little bit better. Here we go. In 1099, after 3 years of marching, fighting, dying, starving, the Crusaders probably had over 100,000 men in their army that met at Constantinople, and over 100,000 that began the march down to Jerusalem. We believe maybe they had only about 20,000 left by the time they got to Jerusalem. But against all odds, they do take the city of Jerusalem. And when they conquer Jerusalem, historians are divided about this. They seem to have succumbed to a religious frenzy. They seem to have completely lost their minds. Now, Jerusalem, who lives in Jerusalem? Put this in your notebook. And by your notebook, put a little line or underneath. And I want you to mention who lives in Jerusalem. There are Muslims that live in Jerusalem at this time. But there are also Jews that live in Jerusalem, and there are also Christians that live in Jerusalem. That's true even today. Muslims, Christians, Jews. When the Crusaders break into the city of Jerusalem, they kind of lose their minds. There are Muslims, Christians, and Jews living there. They can't tell the difference. They speak a different language. The Crusaders pretty much murder and butcher everybody they run into. They slaughter up to 40,000 people, mostly civilians in the city of Jerusalem. They slaughter, make sure again, put this in. They slaughter Jews, Muslims, Christians. They slaughter men, women, and children. And there you go. There's your war for God. There's where religious extremism leads you to. Now, I think I've mentioned this in my previous videos. People are at their most dangerous when they completely believe that what they are doing is right and good and just. These Crusaders were not bad people. They truly believed they were doing what God wanted, just as the Catholic Church believed that with the Inquisition, just as the hijackers of September 11th believed that they were fighting the United States and they were doing the right thing, just as those people who invaded and attacked the Capitol weeks ago believed that they were doing the right thing, that they were in the right. And again, that is when people are at their most dangerous. Okay, they've conquered it. They've conquered Jerusalem. They've conquered the city of Jerusalem in a thin strip of land along the coast of the Mediterranean, but they are within the Arab Muslim Empire. They've conquered Jerusalem, but the question is now, can the Crusaders hold it? Well, that will be a topic for our next video. Hey, talk to y'all later. Hopefully, I'll see you in school. Hopefully. But who knows where we will meet again in this world or the next. I want to make it stop. Make it stop. Does that do it?